Hi, I'm Kylie Roberts.
And I'm Mel Wunwell, and we are Shift Unlimited.
We are both qualified executive coaches, coach supervisors, and trainers of NLP and coaching. The world is a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous place. Every day we wake up to a new surprise. Uncertainty is chronic, instability is permanent, and disruption is common. This is the new normal. The game has changed. It's time to rip up the old rulebook. It's time to define success differently. A shift is happening. The shift is unlimited. We need leaders to live more purposeful lives and to lead more impactful businesses. In this podcast series, we will be doing a deeper dive into many facets of living and leading in this modern world, from founder to scale up, right through to leaders of global established organizations.
We will explore how we can be more holistic and authentic as we connect more deeply with ourselves, our relationships with others, and the wider world. In this podcast series, we'll engage in conversation together on topics that support the modern leader.
We have one wild, precious life to make change for good. And whilst change is daunting, so is staying the same. Let's begin. In this episode, we will explore contracting in coaching, the importance of taking your time at the beginning of a coaching relationship to agree how the coaching will be effective and impactful for the client. We cannot emphasize enough the importance of contracting. In our extensive experience of coaching and making so many mistakes early on, we have both come to the conclusion that contracting well is a key ingredient to a successful coaching relationship. It's no surprise to us that the ethical guidelines of the coaching bodies emphasize how important contracting well is. So in this episode, we will explore why contracting is so important, what it is, what to include as a minimum in contracting, and we will share some suggestions on how to go about contracting well. Let's start with why. Why does contracting well make a difference?
Contracting in coaching is a verbal agreement between a coach and a client that ensures that the client, and if there is one, a sponsor, know and fully understand the nature and terms and conditions of any coaching, mentoring, or supervision contract. It includes financial, logistical, and confidential arrangements. It's a conversation, and it makes the expectations really explicit for all parties involved. And when you take your time to do this thoroughly upfront in coaching, it sets the environment for a really successful coaching relationship. A successful coaching relationship is the basis for a really successful coaching program. Have you ever been in a conversation with someone and there's been complete cross purposes? It sounds like you're in totally different conversations. This is what contracting prevents. It cuts through the probability of this happening and creates the foundation of being in the same conversation together, totally aligned. So what is contracting?
Well, simply put, it's a verbal discussion between client and coach that covers all the hopes and concerns from both parties for the coaching relationship that is about to begin. It will sometimes include the sponsor, which then makes it a three-way conversation when the sponsor is involved. Roles and responsibilities become really clear in contracting, and ambitions for the coaching are articulated, and any pitfalls are discussed so that they can be avoided, and what to do if the coaching falls into one of the pitfalls or the traps. It's not often documented contract, it is mostly verbal. However, we've both known coaches who do ask their clients to sign a written contract of what has been agreed. And in our business, Shift Unlimited, we have a terms of engagement that are signed before the coach and client come together to meet. So that's also a bit of contracting up front as well. But today we're going to talk more about the verbal contract between coach and client in that first session. There's some things that we consistently mention in contracting with clients. Let's talk about these together. Mel.
So the code of ethics we follow means that we'll always mention the following things when we're contracting: that we are registered with the Association for Coaching and the British Psychological Society, and that as professional coaches, we follow their code of ethics. The nature and terms of the coaching, including how many sessions, the duration of each session, where we will meet for our sessions, how regular our sessions will be, and any financial terms that we've agreed. The expectation of the coaching and the role of both the coach and the client in supporting these expectations in order for goals to be realized, and any safeguarding, which definitely includes confidentiality. In our business, we meet our coaching clients both personally and virtually. So we agree in the contracting the best environment for the client to be able to have a really rich, honest conversation without interruption or without having the worry that they may be overheard. Interestingly, following the COVID pandemic, many of our clients have opted for virtual sessions that they have at home where it's totally private. They feel they can be completely vulnerable, honest, and say what needs to be said without any risk of censoring or interruption from other people. When we meet people in person, we ensure that the environment for coaching is confidential, often away from the office, and the client can speak freely. Sometimes, weather dependent, we'll take the coaching outside for a walk rather than sitting in a glass room that isn't entirely imaginative. Do you want to talk more about confidentiality, as it's such a critical part?
In contracting, definitely confidentiality is emphasized. A client and coach enter into a coaching relationship. It's important to make it very clear what happens in coaching stays in coaching, that what the client says is trusted and they're able to speak in this trusted space so that they know that what they say can be kept confidential. The only times that we would ever break confidentiality is if the client were to show an intent to either harm themselves or their organization. And we mention that in contracting, we mention confidentiality and that the only times we would break it would be these instances. And in all of the years that Mel and I have been coaches, neither one of us has ever been in a situation where we've had to break the confidentiality. So how do we go about setting some expectations of the client and also of our role as coach in contracting? We often use two models to share expectations, and the first one is the support and challenge model. So you can see an image here, which is a 2x2 grid that has support across the bottom, low support and high support, and then challenge running down the side with low challenge and high challenge. So when you create an environment where there is low support and low challenge, you will create an environment of apathy. It's a bit, whatever. I turn up, I do my thing, I go home. That's very apathetic, low support, low challenge. When you, as a leader or a coach, create an environment of high support and low challenge, you create an environment that lots of people love, feels cozy, it's very much in the comfort zone, and there's little room for stretch or progress here or movement. So it's just a really nice place to be, really changes. If you up the ante on the challenge and you have low support and high challenge, you create an environment of stress. So a person will feel like they're really stretched, really challenged, but if they fall or they fail or they do something wrong, there's no support for them. They kind of fall flat. It's a very stressful environment for them. So the optimal place create in coaching and in leadership is a space where you can be highly supportive and highly challenging. So this is the place of elite performance. And we often use this model in coaching, and we draw it out on a piece of paper in front of our client and share it with them. And say, this is the place where we both want to be in. We want to both be in high support and high challenge so that we're creating an environment of performance and creating an environment of top performance. It's got a lot to do with E plus R equals O, which is what we talked about when we talked about the frames of NLP and coaching. So we get the outcomes we want when we choose how we respond. So we results or reasons, responsibility for results all rests on the client. So it's up to them to like shift out of cozy or apathy or stress and to really move into this space of high performance. It links really highly into the presupposition as well that everybody has the resources within them to achieve their goals. So as a coach, if we genuinely believe that the resources within them to achieve their goals, then we can stretch them. We can provide an environment of high support and high challenge. Mel, would you like to talk through the other model that we often bring up in contracting?
So this is a model that we devised in Shift, and it's the practices that we know really create progressive leadership and a progressive environment for the people around leaders. It's another acronym. So the R stands for reflection, the I for inquiry, the D for disruption, and the E for experimentation. And it's really important for this in coaching because for coaching to be really powerful, it's what clients do between sessions, not just what happens in the session, that makes the biggest difference. And if we encourage these practices of reflection, more reflection when things go well, when things don't go well, more inquiry with other people and with ourselves, more willingness to disrupt the regular patterns we've got into in our autopilot state, and then willing experimentation, just being willing to do things differently, try something different to see if we'll get a different result. This is why we really encourage it. So inquiry, we will play that part when we're coaching. We'll ask lots and lots of questions. We'll be a thinking partner for our client. We'll encourage them for reflection as well, between sessions to reflect on what's gone well, like I've said, what hasn't gone quite so well, how the session went, how they were, their behavior, lots of things that we'll invite people to reflect on between the sessions. The disruption, we'll explore with our clients what are the typical habits, patterns, and strategies they use on a day-to-day basis, and how helpful are they? Where might they be disrupted? Where, if they were to disrupt them, could they get substantially different results? And this really helps with achieving goals, ambitions, visions, and things we're truly passionate about. All of that is capped off with a healthy dollop of experimentation, where we encourage people to experiment driving in a different direction or walking to work, doing something different in all facets of their life, so that they can just get a zest for life and excitement, which goes back to one of the really strong foundations of NLP, which is this attitude of curiosity and wanton experimentation, a willingness to almost have that childlike curiosity and make life really zestful and exciting again. So what else should we explore in terms of the contracting that we've been doing? Kylie?
We also like to agree things like punctuality for sessions, how to avoid cancellations. If cancellations are unavoidable, we agree what happens next. For instance, if the session is cancelled at the last minute, it wouldn't be unusual to charge the fee for that session. We try to avoid cancellation costs wherever we can in our business and do our best to reschedule. And when this is addressed up front in contracting, we experience much greater attendance on the sessions. Inevitably, sessions do need to be rescheduled, and we agree with the client that this is done with as much notice and respect of both parties involved as possible. Note taking is another thing that we address in contracting. Both Mel and myself take notes when we're coaching. The notes really are for us to remember key things that the client has said that we want to come back to, and also for us to capture any additional thoughts or feedback that we would like to come back to in the coaching. And in contracting, we let the client know that we take notes and that their name isn't associated with the notes in our notebook, so the notes are kept confidential. But in regards to note taking, we also ask them to have a special journal or a place where they can capture their notes from the coaching session as well, which also include their reflections after the coaching session and any reflections between coaching sessions or just prior to their next session. We encourage them to take notes. They'll be drawing things down, like the support and challenge grid that we just talked through. They might draw that down in their notebook and something that they can come back to themselves. So people will often ask us, if once that we've contracted in the first session, is that it? Like we don't have to mention it again? It's a great question. And we'll often say in the contracting in the first session that we can come back to this agreement, this contract at any time and make any changes that either one of us feel is appropriate. The contract is designed to be dynamic and fluid so that the coaching can be really impactful to what's going on for the person in the here and now. It's great to keep coming back to it if necessary. Mel, in what situations would you come back to contracting in your coaching?
There are a number of things that might bring us back to contracting in any of the sessions. For example, a client may want to adjust the goals that they've set for the coaching. They may have decided they weren't ambitious enough. A client may want to terminate the coaching early or even extend it further, in which case we will come back to contracting. The coach may want to address punctuality or cancellation or things that we're noticing, like the most important thing is said 5 minutes before the end of the coaching session. In instances like that, we'll come back to the contracting again and seek to just clarify. We might bring them back to something we talked about, like the E plus R equals O equation or the RIDE principles or the support versus challenge. So it can be helpful to use contracting to come back to those. And it could also be that something unpredictable happens within the coaching and it makes sense to talk about it and to add it into the contracting. I've had some clients who wanted to share something really vulnerable and have been really hesitant to do so. So again, I've returned to contracting, really reiterating the confidentiality and asked them what else they would need to put in place to feel they can talk truly freely. Kylie, what else?
I think whatever it may be, please know that the contract is something that you can come back to at any time throughout the program. We make the time and the effort to do it really thoroughly up front so that when we come back to it, it's just a little drop in here and there, just a reminder or just a readjustment of the contract. So from this episode, you might be getting a really clear picture now of why contracting is so critical in a coaching program. It's the difference between a really great coaching relationship and a not so great coaching relationship. And we know this from our personal experience of not contracting very well sometimes in our practice in the early days. So we know from our personal experience that contracting well means that we set the relationship up for success right from the very beginning. It's something that both of us are quite evangelical about when it comes to our coaching, and we really hope that you can take the learnings from this episode and bring contracting alive in your own coaching sessions. Thank you for listening today. We would love to hear of your favorite things to contract on, and you can message us on LinkedIn or contact us on Instagram with that. Our Instagram handle is at shift_unlimited. Thank you for listening today. We would love to hear of your favorite things to contract on, and you can message us on LinkedIn or contact us on Instagram with that. Our Instagram handle is at shift_unlimited.